Good morning everyone, welcome to English Literature 309, and today I'm going to talk about a book, Siddhartha. In less than 200 pages, Herman Hesse described about Indian religion, its culture, and an unusual journey of an unsatisfied learner of Siddhartha. Siddhartha, born in a rich Brahmin family, had a luxurious future. But unsatisfied with the predestiny, Siddhartha, along with his BFF, Govinda, started the journey of being a Samara, threw away all the belongings, intensely meditated, and fasted. They are also involved in a conversation with Buddha, the Enlightened One, who after the conversation Govinda followed. But unsatisfied with Buddha's philosophy, Siddhartha decided to move on. After 2 sexual things, Siddhartha was desperate to discover the art of love. He met Kamala, the most beautiful woman he ever met, and appointed her as a tutor to teach him the loving art. At the same time, Siddhartha started to enjoy the life of common people, making money from business, making love with Kamala, and later making pleasure from gambling. And finally, after a deep dream, he dumped all of his belongings and Kamala and returned to the forest and become a student of a ferryman. So this is the story of Siddhartha until this point. And after the introduction of this book, today I chose 2 passages in Siddhartha that are very interesting. Both things happen after he returned to the forest after a time of pleasure. Both passages describe Siddhartha's thoughts, his own emotions. And the 2 passages are only divided by 1 dream, but the emotions of Siddhartha had completely changed. Siddhartha walked through the forest, was already far away from the city, and knew nothing but that one thing, that there was no going back for him. That this life, as he lived it for many years until now, was over and done away with. They had tasted all of it, sucked everything out of it until he was disgusted with it. That was the thing bird he had dreamed of, that was a bird inside his heart. Deeply, he had been entangled with samsara. He had sucked up disgust and death from outside into his body, like a sponge sucked up water until it is full. And full he was, full of the feeling of being sick of it, full of misery, full of death. There was nothing left in this world that could attract him, given him joy, or given him comfort. Passionately, he wished to know nothing about himself anymore, to have rest, to be dead. If there was a lightning bolt to strike him dead, if there was only a tiger to devour him, if there was a wine, a poison which could numb his sins, bring him forgetfulness and sleep, and no awakening from that, was there still any kind of vows that he had not soiled himself with, a sin or a foolish act that he had not committed, a dreariness of soul that he could not brought him upon himself? Was there still any possible to be alive? Was it possible to breathe in again and again, to breathe out, to feel hunger, to eat again, to sleep again, to sleep with a woman? was the cycle now exhausted and brought to a conclusion for him. So as you can see from this passage, there are many depressing deep words inside it. You see, there's nothing, no going back, tasted, sucked, discussed, dead, dreamed, dead, entangled, sucked, discussed, dead, sucked, sick, misery, dead, nothing, nothing anymore, rest, dead, strike, dead, devour, a poison, numb, forgetfulness, sleep, no, fell, soiled, thing, foolish act committed, journey, soul, alive, and exhausted. All of these words are super depressing, are like those words which describe a person who want to die, who don't see any meaning for life, and this is actually the situation for Siddhartha. He, after coming back from the casino, he don't know what to do. He don't find any purpose of life. He eventually just want to die. And something interesting is that has used many question words. Words, was, and was, and was. And there are question mark, and yes, question mark. So this was and question marks actually hinted that Siddhartha was very confused, that he don't see what he should do, he don't know what is going to happen, he's questioning himself, he's questioning the purpose of life, he's questioning why he's doing that, whether there is possibility to be alive, to breathe in again and again, to breathe out, to feel hunger, to eat again, to sleep again, and basically to do what a normal people would do. It's hinting that he actually don't feel himself as a person, as a normal person, as a Buddhist person in India. And also has used the word until, as I circled and underlined here. Until, and also the words full and over and done and all, everything, deeply, outside, full. All of those words are like extreme. These extreme words show that Siddhartha actually went like very, very far. Very far, that he has tried everything, as we can see here, any kind of feels that he has not soiled himself with, a thing of foolish act that he has not committed, and it's like he had done everything bad possible. And as he has done everything, he don't know whether he should still be forgiven, that he has still a chance to live a life. And that is why he had passionately wished to know nothing about himself anymore, to have rest, to be dead. Typically, you don't relate know nothing to die as you what the things that you passionately do, but just as he had reached extremely bad, as we would say, he just want to die. He want to know nothing. He want a lightning bolt to strike him dead, and so on and so forth. So basically, this passage is telling us that Siddhartha is very confused, that he is very depressed, that he is suicidal, and yes, But despite all the negative words that he used, like depressed, dead, and stuff, there is actually also, has also hinted that there is a coming back, because he used everything as past tense. Was, given, had, discussed, knew, was. All of these words actually show are in past tense, and this past tense actually is used as is very interesting. It means that this are, well, obviously the past. It is gone. It is away. You see, far away from the city also means far away from the past, because his past was in the city. And this past tense means that he actually is not what he is now, and it is also not future. And he has chance to live a better life in the future, and also he had basically done all of the bad things in the life, not soiled, not committed, and just because he had done all bad things, it means that he will be good. So right after his suicidal thought, he went to a deep sleep, a sleep that is dreamless and very, very long. And after he woke up, his attitude changed greatly, that he don't have any suicidal thought, that he actually think that he has a chance to live on. And this is the passage which showed it, and I will read through it and highlight the main word.
Deep was asleep without dreams. For a long time he had not known such a dream anymore. When he woke up after many hours, he felt as if 10 years had passed. He heard the water quickly flowing, did not know where he was and who brought him there. Opened his eyes, saw the astonishment that there were trees and sky above him, and he remembered where he was and how he got here. But it took him a long while for this, and the past seemed to him as if it has been covered by a veil, infinitely far away, infinitely meaningless. He only knew that his previous life, in the first moment when he thought about this past life, seems to him like a very old previous incarnation, like a early pre-birth of his present self, that his previous life had been abandoned by him, that full of disgust and wretchedness he had even intended to throw his life away. But by the river, under the coconut tree, he had come to his sense, the holy word Om on his lips, that then he had fallen asleep and now woken up and was looking at the word as a new man. Quietly he spoke the word Om to himself, speaking which he had fallen asleep. And it seemed to him as if his entire long sleep had been nothing but a long meditative recitation of Oms, a sinking of Om, a submerged and complete entering into Om, into the nameless, into the perfect. What a wonderful sleep had this been. Never before by sleeps he had been thus refreshed, thus renewed, thus rejuvenated. Perhaps he had really died, had drawn and was reborn into a new body, but no, he knew himself. He knew his hand and his feet, knew the place where he lay, knew the self inside his chest, this Siddhartha, the eccentric one, the weird one. But this Siddhartha was nevertheless transformed, was renewed, was strangely well rested, strangely awake, joyful and curious.
Well, that is a little bit different. In this passage, he threw away all the suicidal thoughts, all the depressed thoughts, and he come back. He is now delighted. He is now pleased. He now feel refreshed, renewed, reborn. He is awake. He is joyful. He is curious. He had, after this long sleep without dreams, he become a completely different person, basically, from the previous passage, which says suicidal, ruined, and all those stuff. And as we talked in the last passage, has used many past tense in the last passage, and in this one also, there's the past, there is long while, the past has been covered by a whale, infinite distance, infinitely far away, did not know, heard, had, and so on and so forth. Abundant. All these words are still the past, but it says it is thrown away. It is actually past. He's no longer this person who was inside, entangled with the bad stuff. He is a different person. He knew himself now. The past are far away. They're far away. They're meaningless. He had actually transformed. And the repetition of ohms, the ohms, the ohms at here are called the holy ohms. And by repeating this ohms, Hess is trying to say that Siddhartha is no longer filthy. He is becoming holy. He's threw away the disgust. He come to his sense, and the holy ohms are on his lips. Now, in the last passage, I talked about how Hess used many question marks. 4 questions. So was, to show that Siddhartha was very confused. He does not know what is going to happen next. But after this sleep, in this passage over here, there's only one question here, which says perhaps he had really died, had drawn and reborn in a new body. But there's also an answer after that. But no, he knew himself. He knew his hand and his feet, knew the place where he lay, knew this self in his chest, this Siddhartha. It shows that Siddhartha is no longer confused. He now knows who himself is. And so now these 2 passages are very, very, very different. The thought of Siddhartha had changed tremendously. From the first passage, Siddhartha was suicidal. He was depressed. He was confused. And he doesn't know what to do, and he wants to die. But in the second passage, it is kind of an irony here that he was suicidal, and now he felt himself is renewed, reborn. But still, he's no longer this suicidal, depressed person. He's now delighted. His self-realized. And there's also the contrast between the past which, well, was the casino, the sex, and stuff, and the future, the holy alms, and the quiet. This without dream, long sleep was a way to show it was quiet. So this contrast between the past and the future really stood out. Hess in these two passages actually did something very interesting. In the first passage, where he was really very confused, all the sentences are quite short. You see, if if was, all of these are actually short, but here, after the realization, this sentence over here went from he here, eventually took 5 lines to complete this sentence. There's not anything very special here, but it is actually related to the thinking part. When the sentences are short, it's actually also hinted that Siddhartha was not thinking deeply. He is like floating above the air kind of things. But here, these long sentences, in contrast, show that he's quiet, he's thoughtful in a way. He actually is meditating. He's becoming smart, he's realized, he's holy. This is one of the big differences between the two passages. But meanwhile, these two passages also have some similarities. In both passages, Hess used many repetitions. In the first passage, he repeated the word death, the word sucked, the word until, and the word was. And in the second passage, well, there's the repetition of no, there's the repetition of and the repetition of past or previous. So both of these repetitions actually showed that Siddhartha's emotion was quite strong. He's very, using this Hess word, passionate in both cases. It's like two extremes. And these two extremes created a contrast between the peacefulness of the future and the filthiness of the past. But despite all of this literary devices that Hess used, all of them are just to let us to feel the emotions of Siddhartha and know his own inner emotions. Today in English Literature 309, we went over the basic plots of the book Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. We compared the emotions of Siddhartha before and after his rebirth. We also analyzed the dictions Hesse used to express Siddhartha's inner conflicts. And finally, we talk about how Hesse used some literature devices, such as repetition, to emphasize the feeling of Siddhartha. English Literature 309 is made in association with Yesing Studio. Yesing Studio is a mobile software company which wanted to keep everyone's life simple. You can head over to Google Play Store to download the latest amazing app ASAP. This episode of English Literature 309 is filmed in Mr. Tian's EL309 studio, St. Petersburg, Russia, with the help of all these amazing people. And our equally amazing graphic team is Jinling's hand.